Teachers of Reddit. What's the coolest thing you've confiscated of a child? Took a pair of handcuffs during second period today. Got a lot of grief when I walked into the office with them. A kid in my class had a BB gun. The VP noticed it as he crossed the room. He took it out of the bag and was giving the kid a bollocking when he shot himself in the hand with it. VP went mental and smashed it off the table. Kid's parents supposedly demanded the VP compensated them for said gun. Educational assistant. But whatever. A makeshift taser. This kid had rigged up a taser using a couple of 9-volt batteries, wire, tape, and some sort of button from what could have been a toy. It wasn't dropping kids, but it was enough to make you jump. I was impressed, but also wanted to pull the little S arms off and slap the snot out of him with his own arms because he kept stabbing girls in the chest with it. Middle school kids are a weird point where they are too smart for children, but are certainly not human. One of my teachers took my yo-yo and tried to do a trick she once knew and smashed her window. One of my teachers took my yo-yo and said I was pretty good at this back in the day. Apostrophe. He then proceeded to do about 5 tricks in succession. We were all impressed. I was a very casual yoer. And he gave me this smug look and said show me your best trick. Apostrophe. I shamefully put the yo-yo back in my bag. I took 6 bullets off of a first grader. When I asked him where he got them, he said from the gun. I then asked how he got them out of the gun and he made the movement with his hands that showed he ejected the shells. I took him to the office. While he was there, I checked his book bag to see if he had a gun in there. Nope. Just a baggie full of credit cards with 15 different names on them. Nothing happened to the child or parent. A Redback Spider from the gently closed palm of a 7-year-old boy's hand. Almost every recess for a month before I figured out a way to make him stop. He was never bitten. Well, this is my own time to shine. My co-worker and I had a mild prank war going on. Somehow, the students caught wind and decided to instigate by stealing things from his room and taking it to mine and vice versa. Here are some of the things I've had to take from them and return to him. His car keys. His entire desktop computer. Portraits of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Pumpkins from his Halloween decorations. His desk chair. His car keys again. A student desk. His travel mug with his name on it. At this point I'm convinced my co-worker just doesn't want his car. And somehow, in the 5 minutes between his class and mine, they managed to flip all the desks in his classroom upside down. I'm not making this up. Live Dragonflies. He was a little 4-year-old boy that would never listen to any of the rules and generally just cause a lot of trouble. Anyway, he would catch dragonflies without harming them. When you told him to release them, he would open his backpack and 2 or 3 dragonflies would fly out. Scorpion in a jar. The kid had put in leaves, twigs and even some smaller bugs for it to eat. Made a real habitat. However, he was clumsy as hell and had a top locker above a concrete floor. No way I was going to risk him smashing the jar and letting it loose in corridor. Gave it back to him at the end of the day with very clear instructions it was not to return to school. Eater. Yes, I am in Australia, but in the south, so wasn't a particularly venomous scorpion. The sting would have caused about the same level of irritation as a bee sting, as for someone non-allergic. I was the kid. An imitation gun that used to belong to my grandfather. The thing was ancient, and was a simple single-shot percussion cap pistol. The more I think about it as an older, less stupid person, the more I worry that it was an actual gun. Since he was a policeman. Never got it back. That's for sure. Not a teacher, but my teacher took my Mighty Bean Solo in 2010 and still hasn't given them back, so I'm guessing she thought they were pretty cool. A duck's egg. It smelled horrible. She told me she found it in the park. It was winter. She was keeping it in her hat hoping it was still alive. Sorry, child. A raw egg spray painted silver. A live bird caught outside. A homemade hand buzzer. Are your students a penguin? Catwoman. The Joker and Bane? When I was a casual teacher, I confiscated a knife from a 5-year-old. He threatened me with it when I tried to get him to do his work. It was my first week. Not a teacher. But one time a teacher confiscated a kid's PSP. It got stolen overnight. So she had to buy him a new one. Physics was tense from then on out. I always wonder what the teacher did with dad's XXXPRN mag I brought to school when I was 7. It's probably why you got to leave early that day. There was a big conspiracy of exam paper trading going on around the area my school is located in. Some kid figured out a way to get the independent exam that several of the schools would purchase each year. He sold copies to anyone who would buy them, including our students. We confiscated a copy of the exam with a different school's logo on it before it was issued to our students. Eventually my school figured out we couldn't buy exams from this seller anymore, as the papers for most subjects, English, Maths, Chem etc., always made it to the kids through the black market. To my knowledge, the seller was never caught. My teacher confiscated a phone case. Just the phone case. My teacher confiscated Vaseline because they were convinced it was an electronic device. I got busted selling envelopes of PRN mag clippings. It went from 0 to 60 real quick, but the schools essentially pulled a RICO case on me. I would advertise by leaking some product and relying on word of mouth. In the bathrooms you'd see clippings taped in the stalls behind the doors. In my bag a dozen rep-opposed envelopes I stole from my mom to house the classified PRN. This only lasted 3 days before it became a big issue, but after I was suspended it was like it never happened. Nobody talked about it because soon after you could just go online and look at PRN on your phones. Frozen water bottle full of frozen margarita he was passing to his friends. 8th grade homeroom. So 13-year-olds sharing a cocktail at 8 AM. It was actually kind of clever hiding in plain sight. It did just look like a bottle of frozen water. But my teacher sense told me something was up. Edit. +1 to age. I don't teach anymore and misremembered the age range of 8th graders. I think it was fall semester, though. So more likely 13 than 14 years old. My teacher sense told me something was up. These children aren't usually drunk. You all know what a pen gun is? Back in elementary. Knives. Drugs. Boxing gloves brought to school for a fight club. Homemade bong, with no cone piece. Shiv made from an offcut of some type of acrylic made in manual arts. Spear made from a bed frame. Edited. A word. Not a teacher. But in my old school, a kid had a water gun and was squirting the kids with it. So when the teacher confiscated it, she began squirting him. Best teacher moment I have ever seen. Not a teacher. But I once heard of a teacher who confiscated a World War II grenade, or something similar, off a kid who got it from his grandfather. Called Bomb Squad. Wasn't explosive. I think the kid got it back. And I'm assuming he got a good talking to about there's some stuff you shouldn't bring to school. Not a teacher. But when I was a student in 8th grade we made muzzle loading weapons, very small pistols and tiny cannons, in woodworking class out of wood, scrap metal, springs and matchboxes. We got the powder from dismantling fireworks and used dried peas for ammo. We got the idea from watching Hornblower, and after that a few other kids thought it was cool as well. It went well until a teacher saw us dueling outside the school area. Many parents were called. My dad said it was the most fun PT meeting ever. A DLDO. It was found in the school garden. The kid came up to me and said, I found a ding dong in the garden and I'm taking it home for mum. I was not professional that day. One time in high school my geometry teacher tried to take the phone of a kid who she thought was texting during class. Turns out. So she confiscated the penis. A note that said, school makes me feel like a dog waiting to be euthanized. Honestly. The things the youth of today come up with. An almost life-size Chucky doll. You could swap in and out a bat or knife. It also had several different things it would say. It became kind of our classroom mascot. Every day before the kids got in class I would move it around the room to a new place. I would play dumb until they noticed and act surprised. Not a teacher. Just a mom. About 3 years ago my daughter's best friend, 12 at the time, ordered a headband with cat ears and a matching tail on eBay. Turns out she unknowingly ordered a butt plug with a cat tail attached to it. The poor girl had no idea what it was. But after some internet searching she figured it out and came running over to my house to hide it from her parents. I will never forget the look on her face when she was trying to explain what had happened. I didn't necessarily confiscate it because she begged me to dispose of it for her. But I still think it was absolutely hilarious. I'm just thankful that her insane mother didn't see it and that the kids are comfortable enough to come to me with literally any problem. So that's how my 12-year-old daughter learned about butt plugs. Thanks internet. Mom used to be a teacher in the 90s. She confiscated a small device, looks like a really small calculator the size of a hand, that translates words from English to Spanish, French, and Japanese. The student was too distracted by that device to pay attention in class. And she asked the student to get it from her after class. The student never showed up. Didn't go to school the next day. Family moved to a different town after a week. I think it has something to do with family drama. I was 5 or 6 at that time and I played with it every day. Now that I'm older and have an interest in learning languages, I realize how that must have been very useful back when Google and smartphones weren't a thing yet. On a ferry to France with about 80 kids. Some buy some Nerf guns. I tell them to be careful and not fire them in public, or I'll have to take them. By the time we bid Carla, my colleagues and I have all of the Nerf guns. Cue all out Nerf wars on the corridors once the kids went to bed that night. And every night of the trip. Not a teacher but a pound of weed was confiscated. I was next to the girl when it happened. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. To clarify, the girl that brought the weed wasn't the brightest bulb in the box. She was flashing her stash to most of the kids that were known to smoke. I never really spoke to her on a regular basis, but the short interactions I had with her made a lot of the things that I thought was strange about her clicked for me later. This was my first time being exposed to weed. I never knew what it was until she ended up getting her stash taken away. I just thought she had some kind of disorder or maybe poor hygiene. I never asked her what the smell was, didn't want to seem rude. Yes, I know I was very naive. As I've stated before, she probs wiped her parents' stash. The head teacher at a friend's school was fired after they realized he was confiscating weed off students and then smoking it in his office. Not a teacher but a student. I had made Thor's hammer in shop class. Principal took it for making a weapon. A paper airplane that flew straight as a dart but constantly spiraled. I took a plastic lightsaber to school in 1st grade for show and tell. They acted like it was a mass destruction weapon. You were too dangerous to be kept alive. I don't know if this counts as a confiscation. But my senior year I took a sewing class and decided to make my prom dress. It was this simple light blue sequin dress, material from Walmart lol, and I spent the whole semester working on it. Well, I have no idea whatever happened to it as I didn't wear it to prom. But think the teacher held onto it and didn't give it back. A student of hers a few years earlier had made underwear or something in class and then later got pregnant. So the teacher always associated anything that could be sexual with that student and didn't want another teen pregnancy happening. I guess she felt like it was her fault. This was in 2001. I'm biologically female and identify as such. Hence why the teacher held onto the dress. She probably thought I'd repeat the same mistake as her former student. i.e. getting pregnant. I didn't. Edit. My high school US government teacher would probably answer a 6-foot inflatable penis. Edit. See replies for context. My teacher confiscated a blade of a pipe saw. The kid didn't even get in trouble. Edit. Wow, I did not expect that this will be that exciting. Her mother's clitoral vibrator. She brought it to school, age 8, and told her friends it was her, the students, tension reliever. And that her mother told her to rub it across her forehead when she felt mad. She then had all of her classmates do the same. To be fair, I didn't confiscate it. My in-room intervention specialist did. And Myers had no idea what it was, so she took it with her bare hands, put it in her pocket, and carried on with her day. Later on, she tried to hand it off to me and I clued her in. Just another reason Myers that year hated me with a burning passion. Edit to add, we called the mom. Mom confirmed what it was. That it was used as such. Kid had stolen it without permission. Also, is short for intervention specialist. Just like the sentence right before I began using the abbreviation. An intervention specialist is a special ed teacher. I worked in an elementary school for kids with oppositional defiance disorder. So 95% of the kids there were special ed with extreme anger issues. Not a teacher, but back in 6th grade a teacher confiscated a Swiss Army knife from a kid. Damn. My first teachers of Reddit thread I've seen since becoming a teacher. And it's one I can't answer because the only thing I've confiscated so far are cell phones and vape pens. LDO. Oh yeah, and the teacher didn't return it. A lit match. And you know, switch card that he tried to use on me when I announced that he was getting a detention. I confiscated a fidget spinner from a kid who used to play with it all the time. He claimed it helped him concentrate. I gave it back at the end of the day and observed him over the next weeks. He really did study better when he was playing with it. Went out and got one for myself. Still absolutely love it years later. Okay, I'm not a teacher, but I'd like to think my teacher would have commented on this. My buddy had a pog maker in 4th grade. I used a Victoria's Secret magazine to make a bunch of ass and titty pogs for the board. I had them hidden in the back of my very messy desk. Sometimes we'd have desk checks and mine was so that my teacher dumped it in front of the class. Ass and titties and pussy pogs went flying all over. It was kick-ass. A button pin that said, "Not a teacher, but my teacher stole my hentai manga. And I saw him reading it after class. Man is a true G." Kendama. I'm getting better at it from practicing with confiscated kendamas. Those things are fun. A chunky boy kept jumping out of his seat and yelling. A specially designed pen that has a radio in it. If you bite the end of the pen, you can hear the radio playing via bone conduction. Only you can hear it. I really wanted to keep it. I'm not a teacher, but when marbles were lit, I got 2 absolute units of marbles. Like, they were bigger than apples. I was the king of my school. And the teacher confiscated them and I never knew what happened to them. They just got lost. Somewhere. A teacher is hiding 2 giant marbles. I don't know where. I'm not a teacher, but one time a friend brought a gun and it was confiscated. I don't live in the US. A teacher at my school claimed she confiscated a pipe bomb. It triggered an evacuation and the kid was expelled. This was at a Christian school. I don't know about coolest, but we confiscated a stick off a student. He was sharpening it so he could stab a girl from the class next door because he loved her and didn't know how to process his emotions. After we told his mother, it was revealed he'd written the girl's name on every surface of his bedroom. The walls. The ceiling. Even the doorknob. He was 8 at the time. My teacher confiscated the woodlice that are living in my tray. A badger skull. Not a teacher, but a student. My teacher took my iPod that I was watching South Park on during class and started watching it in the back of the class with another teacher cracking up while they each had one of my headphones in their ear. Gonna get lost in all the others. Not a techer, but a student. I would buy Call of Duty at midnight release and show it off at school. Well, the teacher took my MW3, gave it back to me a week later. With all the codes used, even the Call of Duty Elite code used. UMR. Not a teacher, but once I had my dad's World War I bayonet, a big knife you stick on a rifle, confiscated. The dumb thing is I asked if it was okay to bring it in, and because we were learning World War I in history she said it was cool. Cue me whipping it out for the class to see and she freaks. Sends me to the principal and calls my father. My dad's like, well, you said he could bring it in? And she had to explain that even though she was our war history teacher she didn't actually know what a bayonet was. Brass knuckles. Still have them. He was a decent kid who had brought them to school to show off. It was one of those situations where I realized how overmatched I was. He was a lineman on the football team hanging out with two teammates in the locker room where I was changing. He punched a locker to demonstrate his awesomeness. I came around the corner and demanded them. It wouldn't have been hard for them. I knew he had just turned 18. So I told him if he handed them over, the permanent felony he currently had on his hand would go away. He complied. I worked in a residential setting with homeless and transitory teenagers. I could write a book just on the crazy that I would find. I think my favorite was a katana. The worst part were all of the glass pipes I found. Our policy was that they couldn't get them back, so they had to be destroyed. I smashed some beautiful pipes during those years, including one that was a perfect glass sculpture of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I hurt my soul. My high school physics teacher told us that in a previous year's class, that a boy had bragged he had some radioactive material. He said his uncle had given it to him. He had it in his pants pocket. My teacher thought it was someone joking with a kid. So he said, bring it up front and we will test it with a Geiger counter. Well, it was radioactive. More so than any kid or physics teacher should be handling. Not a teacher, but every earth science class in my high school did a garden project. The gardens were behind the back parking lot, which was behind the football stadium, which was behind the bus lot. This means the gardens were very far away from the rest of the school buildings. The project was to get in a group of 4 or 5. Pick a small plot of dirt, till it and plant some flowers and vegetables and stuff. Like clockwork. Every single year, some kid would throw down some marijuana seeds as a joke. And when they sprouted, the school police officer would have to come dig it up and make a report. Not exactly a confiscation, but a funny story. 2 police officers came to my school and held a drug prevention presentation. They handed out a tray with 2 joints on it for the students to pass around and take a look at. They emphasized that they want to get their 2 joints back. Well, they got 3 and didn't really know what to do next. I am a teacher, but this one is back to when I was actually at school. My teacher confiscated my rubber band ball. And I mean, not just any rubber band ball. It was the size of a football. That thing had some bounce to it. And at dinner times we used to bounce it as high as we could get it to see if we could get it higher than the 4-story building. We did. The teacher took it off me. Said I could collect it in 2 days. Went to collect it and the teacher admitted he took it home to play with it with his friends and bounced it so high he lost it over his neighbor's gardens. So now I couldn't have it back. He did say how fun it was though. My mom worked in administration at a middle school. Whatever was confiscated had to be claimed by parents. This was the 90s zeros. So lots of Game Boys. If they weren't claimed within a year, they were basically free game. Pun not intended. Close bracket. I got so many Gamma Boys. I would take them to GameStop and trade in like 9 of them for various games and stuff. Damn, what a great childhood. Sucks for those kids, but I guess they didn't want to tell their parents they took their games to school. Ice Cube. Like an actual ice cube or the rapper? Neither makes sense. Condoms in his pencil box. He had no idea they were condoms. He thought they were balloons his dad had hid from him. A live scorpion in a plastic bottle. An alcoholic beverage from an 8-year-old that he was sharing with a couple of friends in the schoolyard. Teachers of From. And the item was a 12 DLDO. allegedly for use as a prop in an assembly skit. But hell no. I brought a live bat to school in a jar when I was in 1st grade. Freaked my teacher out all day long. I just remember her beehive hairdo, fake lashes, all that makeup, think Andorra, and lots of perfume. She would keep walking up to me, lean down real close, looking into my face and asking me if I planned to open that jar. No. I told her I was taking it back home to let it go. My father had found it removing a window AC unit and put it in a jar for me to bring to show and tell. I don't think she expected a tiny little girl in dress bringing a live bat in a jar. Still cracks me up.